Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of my show. Welcome. We are in Wednesday. We're on Wednesday of the third week of Easter. And there was a couple funny things I just ran into today before we get into the main part of the show. I wrote it down literally because I was like, this is great. It's kind of funny. But I saw that they had promoted a new Secretary of Navy. I didn't even know that was a thing or how important that is. Some guy got fired or he quit or something. I don't even care. But the next guy up, this is for America, by the way. The next guy up is Hong Sao. Apparently, they're promoting Hong Sao to be the Secretary of Navy. And I just thought that was a little a little crazy. You know, you don't want to be racially charged, but that guy's for sure a Chinese spy. Just going on a hunch here. No real reason. Just seems like he could have dual allegiance. I don't know. Maybe he should change his name. Like you have to have an American name or like an English sounding name if you want to be high up in the military. Hong Shao. He's like, I'm Hong Shao. I'm from Washington, D.C. I just thought that was kind of hilarious. That's just the melting pot. We're the melting pot. Hong Sao is going to lead the Navy to the promised land. And then, so that was a funny. But the other thing I was looking at, I was watching the Sam Hyde video. He did an interview with this flat earther guy, and I was like, I'm flat earther now, basically. No, I'm just kidding. It was pretty interesting. It was hilarious. Sam Hyde's usually pretty funny. But the flat earther guy, I'm honestly almost tempted to just believe flat earth just because like how much the like mainstream narrative is pushed by public education. All the heliocentrism, geocentrism stuff gets really annoying to me because I really don't think they know as much as they know. And a lot of people, when you take an other side, like I don't consider myself a flat earther. I'd be open to it. But when you say like, if you said like, or took a flat earther position or a geocentric, the like against position is always like, oh, that's so retarded. And then they have like some talking points, but usually people don't really know. And it's like, do they have to know? I don't think so. But most people are just believing something just because it's taught to them in high school, elementary school. And then some of the points that are said by globers, I don't even know what they're called, versus flatters, they're interesting, and some of them maybe have a good point, but some of them are like kind of dumb. And they're not really addressing, I guess, the flat earther position. But again, I don't know. I want to be a flat earther. Someone make me a flat earther. I would love to be that guy. I just haven't looked into it enough. I don't know if I want to look into it. I've looked a little, and it's like so toxic. Like both sides, the people that like hate flat earthers and the people that hate globe trotters or whatever. It's really toxic, and they don't really like sit down and actually go through the talking points. They usually just call each other stupid. It's really weird. But anyway, he had this guy on, David something, and he was mentioning this thing I thought was so crazy. I got on a sidetrack. I wasn't even listening to his other points about flat earth. He was talking about the Georgia Guidestones. Have you ever heard of this? The Georgia Guidestones. I'd never heard of this before. So apparently they were made. They don't really know when they were exactly made. It sounded like from like Wikipedia and like Google. But there were these stones around 1980 that were made, and like the anonymous guy who paid for it or whatever, he wanted a bunch of these stones that would like help humanity after like a cataclysmic event. And I forgot what it had. It had some stuff on it. It had like 10 guidelines for humanity, after the apocalypse, I guess. And it was written in a bunch of different languages, and it was all you could also use as a calendar and as like astronomical something. That's what the flat earther guy was mentioning for. It sounds like and they have pictures of them because it's 1980s, and it was destroyed they were destroyed. And I want to get into that in 2022. So not 4 years ago. That's not that long ago. But he was talking about it because it keeps Polaris in a certain thing. I'm not going to get into that. I don't really know astronomy that well, so I don't want to get on my comfort zone. But so these stones were made, and they were massive. granite stones, the Georgia Guidestones. And so apparently in 2022, apparently they weren't very well liked. I saw that they were vandalized a couple times, it seems, from the pictures. And people, even though the guy claimed to be Christian, I guess, the anonymous guy who had them made, people were saying it was like very satanic or something like that. It was very, very crazy random. And honestly, interesting that this guy bothered to build them. They must have been expensive. They were just massive granite stones in the middle of nowhere. People called them the American Stonehenge. So if you've heard of that, this is what I'm talking about. But then there's some kind of funnies with this. I was looking at it. So apparently the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was responsible because in 2022 there was an explosion there that busted up some of the stones at 4 a.m. And they have the video of the car driving away of the person that blew it up. It didn't blow up the whole thing. And then later that day, I guess Georgia, whoever, the GIA, literally it says the Georgia Bureau of Investigation investigated it. I was like, I didn't even know that they had that. I know the FBI. I didn't know Georgia had their own thing. Does Arizona have its own thing? Does California? Does New Mexico have its own thing? I don't even know. So interesting. They're investigating it, and it's 4 years later, and they still don't have any suspects or any idea who blew it up. I'm like, oh wow, that's great. They have a video of the car. You'd think, like, just pick them up the day of or the day after. Yeah, very weird. So it was just so the bomb exploded some of it, and then later on in that day, whoever decided, I don't know who, the government in some way, decided to tear the rest down because it was a danger. So whatever. I don't know conspiracies. I don't know. But it's but the stones, it says they were built to withstand a catastrophic event. But I was like, just one explosion just destroyed the whole, didn't destroy the whole thing. But it's just I've never heard of this before. It's so crazy. It was like these weird stone things in the middle of Georgia, and then they get exploded. Someone hates them so much, they get blown up. And then the GIA comes in and is like, hey, let's investigate. We're a real organization. Let's investigate this, which I was not aware of. And they can't find anything on these people for 4 years now. They haven't found anything on who did it. So random. So interesting. I love this world. Like, there's so many interesting things going on. And I would love, if anyone has some conspiracy information on that, to let me know. I will talk about it. But I thought that was so fun, especially the GIA. I was like, they're like mini FBI, like do. It was cool. And then so that was the second thing. The last thing was kind of interesting, is just that NASA is the #1 consumer of helium on Earth. I just thought that was kind of funny. I mean, I just Googled it and it seems like that's true. I don't have any conspiracies with that. Obviously, the flat earther guy does. And I'll let him explain that. You can find him. Sam Hyde interviewed him. So if you want to find him, funny interview, obviously, Sam Hyde. But yeah, that's kind of some side stuff. Again, I want to be a flat earther just because it's against the public school system. It's against all the school systems. So I want to be a flat earther. So if you can convince me, let me know in the comments to be a flat earther, and I will listen to what you have to say. I will. I watched that whole interview. So what I actually want to talk about today is schooling, because I think schooling is just crazy at this point. Honestly, I'm of the position that if you're not homeschooling your child, like, I don't even know if I can trust you. At this point, the stuff that your kids are being told in school and just the way that they're treated is just so odd to me. And you have a bunch of these, like, I think there's so much cognitive dissonance with this, because you have people that are like Republican and they like live off the land and they don't trust the government and all this stuff. But then they're like, I put my kid in public school, or even like, I don't even trust the private school, but like, I put my kid in public school. Like, how is that even possible? People be like, what do they say? They're like doom prepping and all this stuff. Maybe those guys put their kids in homeschool. I hope they do. But I feel like I've met people that, they're kind of extreme, but they're still like, yeah, my kid goes to public school, which is just basically babysitting. Like, that's what people want. Do you really learn anything in school? I know for me, like I don't really remember paying attention at school. I was really good at math, but I don't think it's because my teachers were great. It's just because I was like, this just makes sense to me. Whether it's like a race thing or just like a IQ thing or something. It's like you tell me it and I can get it. Honestly, I could have read it all in a book. I've seen the textbooks. Like you could just read them and you can figure it out. You don't need a teacher if you understand it. And I don't know how much you're going to understand if you can't read it and understand it. You know what I mean? Like if someone tells you something, maybe this is people argue like people learn differently. I don't even know if that's true, honestly. But like if you can't read something step by step and understand it, how is someone telling you it going to help you? Or if you can't read an example step by step with anything, not just math, how is someone taking you through the steps verbally going to help you? Anyway, but like people out there will be like Area 51 has aliens. And also like we landed on the moon and that's for sure, which in my understanding is pretty much the same people like doing like have you ever like you have to have met these people. They're everywhere. It's like Area 51, we have to storm it for sure. Aliens there. The government's lying to us, but also the government's not lying to us, but that we landed on the moon. And I'm like, they're the same people. Like NASA, the military, are they not of the same ilk? And I'm not even saying I believe in either of those things. I'm just saying I feel like there's like a cognitive dissonance thing. They don't like. Is there more evidence that Area 51 has aliens than there's that, as opposed to evidence that we didn't go to the moon or something like that? I don't know. It just seems weird. Or like people will believe like vaccines are super harmful and they're like a plan to sterilize you or kill you or something. But then they'll also be like, well, yeah, of course you drink fluoride. That's just what you do. Or you drink tap water. Of course, that's what you do. And I'm not saying those things are directly comparable, but it's like I feel like there's so much cognitive dissonance that has to do with like trust in the government, but it's like very picky, choosy. And it would be different if these people knew the backgrounds of all this stuff. They're like, I've looked into fluoride and I've looked into vaccines, and I know, which most people I don't think do. Um, and these people would be like, I'm putting my kid in public school though. I'm like, what? What? But public school is even worse because it's like it's so like just spread out where it's like you have a school and it's different for different places, but like you have like a school central system that like imprints curriculum from the top down, and then like it gets even worse because the people that are probably giving you the children the information in the public school or even in Catholic school or religious school or private school, like these are underpaid people that have like probably public school educated too, and they have their own biases and they're just like adding it to it. Not to mention, if you've been in these classrooms, I went to public school as a kid, it's chaos. It's actually great. Like it's not a learning environment. So you compound all these things. You have the top down curriculum, which is going to be whatever the current powers that be want your kid to learn. And then you have the teachers that are, I don't want to generalize too much, but they're probably not, cream of the crop, even 50% of them. And they have their own biases. And if you just took America and just took 50% of it, you would find some pretty contrary beliefs to yourself, whatever side of the political, religious, whatever spectrum that you're on. And then factor into that, like how crazy it actually is to be in those classrooms, especially if you got like 30, 40 kids in there. Assuming the teachers were teaching your kids like the exact thing that is correct and true that you want them to teach, they probably not even gonna get the information because it's just a crazy environment. And obviously it varies, but like in a general sense, I think we can make that generalization. So that's what you're dealing with going to public school. So if you're someone who like has any doubts about the government, or you don't think that your kid should be taught something stupid or something super against your beliefs or anything like that, it's like, why is your kid in school? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how hard it is to get your kid homeschooled. I don't have kids, but unless it's like impossible, I don't understand. And in theory, it should be cheaper to homeschool your kid. I know public school is free, but if maybe they don't let you redirect your tax dollars, but like it wouldn't be good like in a money sense too, like especially private school. I've heard those things can be like thousands of dollars a year, so it's got to be cheaper, right? And then another thing that's crazy is, well, people sometimes people will homeschool. I should have looked up how many people homeschool. But some people will homeschool and they'll like tell me about it because I'm just curious. And this is, a very small sample size. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. But then they'll be doing the same thing that the public school is doing. Like they'll literally have their kid, like they'll buy a curriculum and then they'll have a kid like sit in like a classroom setting in their house. It's like, well, you're just doing the same thing. And it's like the same information. Sometimes it's good, better information. Most of the time it's not. I've seen some Catholic curriculums that I'm like, this is just garbage. But that kind of bothers me too. It's like the world is your oyster. Your kid's gonna die. You're gonna die. You have a chance to do things differently, create a different outcome, different paradigm. And you're like, well, I'm just gonna do public school at home. And it's like, are you sure you want to do that? You want just think about it for 2 seconds. Please just think about it. I think it's insane. So what else do I have to say about this? I really don't think anything is really learned in these schools, whether it's public school, private school, Catholic school. I've been in those environments and I would say very few of the students actually, especially nowadays, maybe it was better back then, but nowadays, no one's really learning anything. And even the stuff they learn, they forget in 5, 10 years. I went to college. I don't remember 90% of the things that they taught me, right? I was getting that letter grade. And people have so many arguments. Well, you got to do it, even if people are going to remember. It's like, do we have to do it if we know that they're not going to remember? Why don't we just give people the information they need and they can be curious or they can adjust for jobs or different situations and learn on their own? Why can't we just do that? I know I'm speaking to the void here. And it's like, what are we going to do? But my thing is like, you could homeschool your kid. That's what you could do. That's the thing to do. Also, the narratives that are built in high school or school in general are very strong. It's almost not like they're teaching you skills, they're teaching you narratives. They're building myths for you. And to a large extent, you don't even like take in a lot of the specifics. You're not like, what happened in 1970? You're like, I don't know. But you take in like the hippie movement as like a narrative. You don't even know the specifics of it, but you're like, ooh, that sounds cool. Or like sexual liberation, libido dominandi. You're like, they're literally teaching you in health class, like how to wear a condom, like birth control. You need to be on it in high school and all this stuff. It's like very narrative controlled. Obviously, that was all like libido dominandi stuff, but there's other stuff too, like narratives about the government, narratives about America, narratives about religion, different religions. It's all there. So if you let your kid into a public school, which I'm assuming if you do, you just don't care that much about what your kid thinks, and then you really don't have a narrative to give your children. And you're fine. You don't even care. They can take whatever narrative they want from the public school, which is sad. But if you do care, I beg you to homeschool your kid or at least think about it. No, don't even think about it. Just do it. Just do it. It's crazy. Honestly, and I've met some homeschoolers too. So I've heard people talk about the socialization thing. I used to think that wasn't true, but I have met some homeschoolers where I'm like, is it maybe? I've met some socially awkward people from public schools, private schools too. So that's maybe my biggest thing where I'm like, I don't know, because they're everywhere. But there is a thing with homeschoolers where they're usually always socially awkward in some way, or they're like overcompensating it, which is weird. I don't know why that is. I would be curious. People say it's like they're not socialized with a bunch of people their own age group. I'm like, do they really need that? Like, why would you need that? Is it to like see social cues and stuff? I don't know. And I would say it's better to stay away from most of these kids that are in these schools. They're like, all it takes is like a couple parents not caring about their kid, and those kids are, watching porn. They're reading a bunch of crazy stuff. They're saying a bunch of crazy stuff to your kid, exposing them to a lot of different things just by being in the same classroom or the same grade level of the same school. So it's just not a risk worth taking at all, especially if you care about your kid's moral health, spiritual health. It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, these homeschoolers sometimes do feel a little strange, a little awkward. I don't know what it is, but a lot of them, and it is weird how the complex that's kind of created, because usually homeschoolers are very not super isolated. Like it doesn't have to be. Sometimes they are, but like the parents kind of almost seem like to get like a God complex almost, where it's like they're literally forming this whole kid by themselves. And if you don't have like a church or some sort of community, it's like literally just you with your kid. So if you're not solid, your kid's not going to be solid, right? He hasn't been exposed to other information. With the internet, it might be a little different, but the internet is so dangerous. You could go on something super good, you can go on something super bad, and hopefully the parent is the one that guides. So if the parent's the only one and they're not great, obviously that's the risk we take. We don't take it. We're just born, but it is an interesting concept there that I've noticed. And then the Catholic school thing, people, they're like, well, send my kid to a Catholic school. I think in some ways it is better than public school, but in some ways it's not. In one way, in theory, like, and it's not even true, honestly, I can't even say, but like it should be more sheltered from evil stuff, but it's really not. We have some horror stories in the diocese I live of some schools. I've been exposed to some schools, and I've also heard of other schools that I haven't really been exposed to about how bad they are. So that might not be true. I know my own experience is like, oh wow, it's pretty rough actually. And but the problem with the Catholic school is it might be better, it might be worse in that extent, but it's gonna be like you already have the notion that it's supposed to be better. So that like it's like, oh, this is happening in a Catholic school. So it like really turns you off, I feel like, from the church or from the religion, which is worse. If you went to a public school and you learned all this crap and you went through all this, you couldn't put the blame on the church or on like the hierarchy or people that are Catholic and stuff. But if you go to a Catholic school and it's the same as the public school to a large extent, and all this terrible stuff happens to you, you learn all this crap, then that like you group that in with the church, which is no bueno. And a lot of teachers at Catholic schools are not even Catholic. So it's like, but they're associated by the kid as with the Catholic Church, which is also crazy. Like this is a lot of crazy stuff going on. Yeah. So what else? Yeah. That's why I wrote it's a false sense of security. The public school thing doesn't make sense. I want people to challenge me on this, but the public school thing does not make sense. It really just seems to me like all these schools are just glorified babysitting. I've heard the argument. I haven't really looked into it. Like public schools were first created to basically make factory workers in the 1800s, and like it was mandated by the state, which it makes sense in one way, but that's kind of a sketchy thing to hear. And when the state's giving your kids myths so they can just be good little boys in a state that maybe doesn't have your best interests in mind, that can be a problem. That can be a huge problem. And I know this is just something mainstream or something. I know there's famous people probably talking about this, but I thought I'd chime in. And Catholic schools is just, I don't think it's the answer. And to a large extent, like the schools are cooked, I would say that. And if they're cooked, society is cooked, right? Because everyone's going to school. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's true. Like right now you can kind of see it, that if someone can't shake off what they basically like seeped into them in school, like they become kind of a problem in society. And you're seeing that. I think you're seeing the West really crumble, maybe slowly but surely. And I think school has a big part of that. School is obviously a big part of the culture war. That's why I always think I'll be coming back to this as I have more and more ideas. And it's like school teaches you a lot of things that you just take for granted too. It's not even from your parents, really, if I remember correctly. It's like all of the science stuff you learn, even though that science stuff is changing constantly, they'll tell it to you like it's straight gospel. They teach like a scientism too. And then the history they teach you is straight garbage. I just remember hearing how bad like the Inquisition was like constantly. And I'm like, the Inquisition was based. It was, I mean, especially Spain, it was so necessary. Um, but yeah, this myth, and in America, we're like a Protestant Jewish intellectual elite now, ever more becoming atheist agnostic. So it's like, what does the government want to teach your kid? It wants to teach your kid that the Catholic Church is terrible, that every age before Enlightenment was just straight trash. Doesn't want to teach you the cool stuff about the Roman Empire, even if we're going to get off of Catholicism. Doesn't want to teach you the cool things about the Greeks. It doesn't teach you anything. It's really, and it doesn't even get you prepared for a job. Even it's like, all right, if you just want good workers, just prepare us for a job, and it doesn't even do that well. It made me so lazy. I had to like reteach myself how to learn by myself, how to be self-motivated, because it was just like, anyway, I'm kind of ranting now. But yeah, if you don't have your kid homeschooled, like I don't like if I meet someone and they're like, oh yeah, my kid goes to so and so public school or so and so Catholic school, private school. I'm like, I'm already like, I don't know how much I should trust you. Can I trust you with anything? Are you a responsible adult? I would love to hear like, and honestly, it has to do with feminism because the reason that they're getting babysat in school, the kids, is because mommy and daddy are both working, right? We all know that, right? So that's a whole different discussion. It's babysitting. I don't know if we can see eye to eye. If maybe I can tell you, be like, tell you this stuff, and we talk about public school, and like, why are they there? And you're like, yeah, you're right. They shouldn't be there, but like, we just our bills. And I'd be like curious about your bills, but I'd be like, okay, you at least know. But most people are just like, yeah, that's what we do. We put our kids in public school, we put them in the Catholic school, and they're good to go. We don't have to teach them anything. And you're not going to teach them anything because they're gone for, if it's just school, which it never is, they're gone for 8 hours, right? And then they usually have clubs, athletics, their friends, all these different things after school. So it's really like 10 to 12 hours at some times of the year. And you're working. So you're doing your thing. And then parents always have hobbies and stuff. Kids always have hobbies. You're not even talking to your kid. Don't even lie to yourself. You don't even know your kid. And it's just insane. And then we have this society we have, and it's like, okay, this makes sense. So basically, what's my point? I can't trust you. I can't trust you if your kid's not being homeschooled right now. And I don't know how to socialize them or if that's even a homeschooling thing. I'd be curious. If anyone has information on that, let me know. But yeah, usually homeschool kids, not that they're not cool or good morally, there just does seem to be a little bit of some social something going on. But that is also present, as I said, in other ways of schooling, public school and stuff like that. So I don't really know what it is. That's what I want to talk about today. Hopefully that was a fun one. Maybe I'll look into flat earth. I don't know. It just seems like so much time. What am I doing besides that? Not much, honestly, but who knows? We'll see. Anyway, this has been fun. God bless you. God keep you. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. Share this with people if you want, if they just want to watch, me talk to myself. I'm thinking about getting new equipment and stuff because I'm just going to keep going with this until I die. Maybe, possibly. But thank you for watching. God bless you. God keep you. And I will see you on the next one. Good night.